Thank you. Well, now I have to figure out where to sit because I like things difficult and we just had some little issues to solve. And I never know exactly what my slides are, and now I don't have my screen, so I have to watch my own slides. Thank you for coming. My talk is called Road to Obsolescence, which sounds a bit strange, maybe. And so maybe I should give you a short introduction who I am, because I don't know from what end you know me. So I'm an artist and I'm curious. I like to know how things work. I like to figure out, I like to take things apart and look inside what they are doing. And in order to do that, and to understand things, I like to build systems because I'm interested in the emerging properties of complicated systems, which is mostly humanity or things like art itself. So I like to know how art works in all its aspects, starting from why do we find images interesting, how do you become an artist and why not, and why isn't this artwork expensive and this one is not. And of course, in order to do that, these days I use a lot of AI, because AI allows you to analyze things about ourselves which become measurable in numbers, but still are kind of weird, kind of concepts that are often hard to grasp in, what's interesting, what is beautiful. But AI allows you now to put numbers to these things and optimize things towards a certain effect. So I build a lot of physical installations too, and you see a few of those things. I work a lot, you see, with faces. I realized when I put it together that I work a lot with faces. I thought it wasn't that much. But I also, nowadays, I jump between texts and motion graphics and pictures, because in the end, everything comes together in these models. And that's actually one of those things. We as humans understand data not separated into pictures and sounds and words, but they all come together somewhere with meaning. And trying to find meaning is one of those things I always hope to do. So I build these things and hope to get to some ideas, and of course hope to engage others to find something meaning in that I might not have input in there. Actually here, just a bit of advertising break, I built this little installation called Displace. You can find it in room 3, which allows you to mint your own free NFT. All you have to do is bring your QR code of your wallet and hold it to the camera. And then I built a little system which combines a bit of AI, Big GAN, which creates, let's say, a foundation, a structural foundation, to a feedback loop which feeds on itself and kind of runs the data through flows and displaces, and hopefully with the help of a joystick you can in the end find something you like. I like to build systems where I don't know myself what I will get out. I like to build systems that are still able to surprise myself, because that's the thing, lots of you are working with generative art, I'm pretty sure, and that's always the problem. When you build a system, you end up with something where you kind of know what to expect. And with AI, it's becoming a bit better than with pure algorithms, in the sense that they contain so much knowledge that's kind of outside of what everybody themselves knows, that there's always room that you find something you didn't expect, which is also what attracts me so much to working with GANs and text to image and all these things. So, and now I lost the connection. Hello. Is there somebody up there? Can you? Sorry, there we go. Okay, looks like I have the connection again. So what is this thing about this talk today? So working with AI and kind of building these systems, and this whole idea of kind of the question is like, what is art? What is an artist? There was always my goal to see how much of myself I can replace with a machine, so that in the end I make myself fully obsolescent. So, and of course, you start small and then you start replacing more and more parts. And so in a way, this talk is about kind of my road to like how far I have gotten in that goal to, yeah, replace myself with a machine. And this is difficult. Okay, so of course, when we hear about art, the first thing that comes to our mind, like artists are creative. Like that's kind of one of those core ideas about artists, that they make new things, they create. And then the question is, can this be automated? So the question is, of course, what is creativity? Kind of what is it what are we doing when we are creative? So, well, the first thing, so I guess a lot of people think like when you're creative, you are creating something. And I don't think it's the case. So when my theory about creativity is that when we are creating, we are actually finding something that already existed outside of us. So it's an idea, so all ideas already exist. So creativity is only the process of, well, discovering that idea and identifying it as something that is worth keeping and then making it yours. So creativity is a search and not creation. So yeah, all ideas already exist somewhere. And and creativity is kind of the kind of being good in searching that space, being efficient and being, because there are a lot possibilities. So, and the other problem is that we're always talking about like how human imagination is so amazingly free and we can just imagine anything, but that's also not the case, according to me, so you don't have to believe me, but that's kind of how I see things. In a way, each of us can only imagine kind of based on what we already have experienced and what we know and what's inside of us. So everything you take up with your senses, you hear, you read, becomes part of your repertoire of what you know. And then these become almost like Lego blocks from which you can build bridges or from which you can kind of like either find something interesting in between them or recombine them to something. But you cannot just make something up out of thin air. So it's a bit like that game of Civilization. Maybe you still know that fog of war. Like, so your current imagination is kind of like this space in which you can move. You can kind of look to the edges and see maybe there is something interesting to find. But you actually kind of have to go to the edge to then broaden your horizon and maybe spot something, some new concept or something from a different domain that maybe you're doing music, but then you read a book and then you realize, oh, that is actually something I can transform into music. But you first have to have kind of had the basic building blocks to do that. And so the goal is actually to get more building blocks. You need more material to get more ideas. So you need to, and ideally you have to search everywhere. So don't just look within your own field of expertise. So if you're doing NFTs, better look somewhere else for new ideas. Or if so like just kind of looking at what your peers are doing is kind of like you are almost just interpolating between ideas. To broaden it, you should take concepts that come from somewhere else. So how do you do that? Like, how do you manage to see more? How do you get more information? Well, that's where AI comes in, because now we have these models that have been trained on the whole knowledge of the world and that you can actually start using to steer, like, to show you more that you didn't already know, that doesn't come from your own self. That's one of the potentials. Oh, come on. Okay, so in this sense, like coming back to that idea of replacing myself with, for example, parts that I do as creative with AI, it's a bit like self-augmentation. So I take one sense or one limb and have it replaced with a machine. And there's this thing called like that metaphor, or how you call it, which is Tezos' ship. And there was this ship when Tezos and his companions kind of traveled to Crete or so in the Hellenic War, and they came back, they were heroes, and they took that ship and put it up as a monument. But over the years, kind of that ship was there sitting in the harbor, and over time, the wood was starting to rot, and then somebody repaired the wood, and maybe some other part was replaced with something else. So over time, like all the parts of the ship were replaced with new material. And then there's of course the question, is that still the same ship? And the same is like if I start kind of replacing my abilities with like certain abilities that I have with AI, is the end product still me? Or what is it that, like, if I have replaced all the parts and they kind of equally or even better do things that I have done before, is it still me doing that? Or is there a point where it stops being me? So I like that idea. And so far I think everything I do is still me, but it's hard to say if at some point, if I'm not in that at all anymore, is it still me or is it something like my child? So question. Okay, so let's get to the pictures. So that was the long and boring introduction. So how do you automate this now? How do I go about kind of replacing things that so far, like for a while, only humans could do or only like manual work could do with something the machine can do? Let's go back. Hello? Okay, let's see. So I talked about the space of all possible ideas before, but let's break it down first to a simpler space. So a digital bitmap, which is kind of, as you can probably know, kind of like a certain amount of rows and columns, and then there are just digital numbers in there, is already kind of like a space where you can theoretically encounter every possible image that there ever has been, or that ever might be, or never might be. If you just kind of cycle through all the pixel combinations that are possible, theoretically every possible image is already in there. The problem is that this space is immensely huge and you can never, by random chance, you will never come really across an interesting image. You will just end up with noise. That's the probability. So, and here's an example from 8BDO, which is kind of like just an 8x8 pixel bitmap. And you can already see that the possibilities here are kind of pretty wide, even though it's just 64 pixels with RGB colors. And so even that space can never be explored in the time that humanity exists if you just kind of systematically go through all the pixels. But using AI is kind of allowing you to take a shortcut, because that's kind of what AI is good at. Like, you could just randomly create a random number and then you get noise. But training AIs is kind of creating almost like roads in that big space, which travel on paths that create images that make sense to us, that have a composition, that their color scheme is right, that kind of they skip the noise and just stay in that manifold on the areas where images can be found that might be meaningful to us. And so that's already a way to save time. So you do not have to go through all the possibilities. You just go through that 1% of images in that huge, immersive space where you find something that makes, there's the random noise. This is what you get when you just throw the dice. So, and earlier, before AI came, and like before deep learning became possible, of course, there were other ways to trying to kind of increase your chances to find something interesting just with let's say, simple intelligence. So I built a tool called Sketchmaker, which was it was kind of this thing that you could say you combined Photoshop layers with filters and a bit of code, but of course not in Photoshop. And it was just assembling, let's say, little modules that were doing little things like draw 100 random circles, invert them, blend, stretch the whole image. So it built these DNAs for processes, and that I could already feed into something like an evolutionary process where with some very simple measuring mechanisms I could say this image looks better than the other one, and the machine would then try to change the DNA of that image to get something that looked better than noise. But that was still pre-AI. But I still like these compositions actually, so that's why I put them in. Because they I always have to do this thing where I say, yeah, I did this earlier. So anyway, so this was kind of like back in the Flash days, and it was kind of working okay, but very slow and very still almost noisy. So the problem is, so now when you build generative systems or AI stuff, what you get is and now you get not just noise, but possibilities of things that could be interesting. It becomes not a matter of creation, but it becomes a matter of choice, because now you have this machine that keeps on bringing you more and more images, so that the time that you saved in actually kind of making a single piece or setting the pixels right, now you have this machine which is like the sorcerer's apprentice, which kind of puts on this avalanche of imagery on you, which is all potentially interesting. So it's not a problem of creation anymore, but it's a problem of choice now. So now you have to spend hours in going through thousands of images and looking at them and deciding, is this one better than that? Or so kind of you outsource that, you offset the problem. So, but yeah, it's still fun, but of course that's the next thing you might want to automate. So now, instead of manually deciding I like this or that, replace that part with something a machine can do. So let's see if the machine can do that. I still have to find the sweet spot where that clicker sees where the thing sees my click. Oh, okay. So, and making a choice, deciding if something belongs to whatever you call your art or is fitting certain parameters could also be called curation. That's kind of my definition of curation. It is. Where is it? Where is that sweet spot? So that's kind of my definition of curation, making a selection based on a common theme, pattern, or other form of similarity. So, if we create, Mikol and the others have curated this show, there was a certain decision going into the process, who gets in and who gets not. And of course, one of the categories was it has to be NFT. So it could be a category, or it could be a show where it says only portraits, only birds, only certain things. So kind of curation is pretty much it's what you do, what you decide it is, but it's usually you have to define certain parameters that say, this is in and this is out. And of course, this is also something where a machine can help you, because that similarity is where machines are really good. Deciding if something looks, sounds, means something similar as some other piece. And then it allows you to create these groupings. So when do we get to the picture? Okay. And a quick example of kind of an automated curation process is is a project we call archive speed dating. So it's about image similarity. I'm collaborating with a huge image archive, which is called the Beijing Silver Mine, and it's kind of an archive consisting of, I think, 500,000 images, which have been kind of are recycled. It consists of recycled slides that have been rescued from Chinese recycling plants that take old kind of slight negative films, and which are usually kind of destroyed and for the silver extraction, and instead he buys them in kilos and then has this huge collection of Chinese photos, which, yeah, so you have 500,000 images and which shot by mostly Chinese tourists, and so this is kind of how these things look. And so this is already kind of a curation the machine does automatically. So you can say, give it a single example image. In this case, it's something like a person with a red shirt or red dress in front of something. And then the machine can decide, find me all the images that look closest to this. And well, the beauty is that now using these models, it makes decisions that are close to how we would decide. It's not based on pixel similarities or stuff, but it's actually also looking at semantics. And so this is then the project called Archive Speed Dating, where in this case, the Beijing Silvermine archive meets the imaginary archive from Romania, Bulgaria. And so what happens is, we take one picture coming from the Chinese archive and ask in the other archive, find me the best match in this. And there you can definitely see that the matches are not just based on colors, but it's really that these machines understand now what is going on in these images. And I find these oppositions very, very beautiful, because in the end you look at the single pictures and they are maybe like taken on their own, not that interesting, but by starting making these connections, you can find something interesting in data that actually was supposed to get discarded. And that's the other thing I like, kind of like we are creating more and more data, like everybody of us is creating and adding more images to the world, but at the same time it's not that interesting to look at all the data that has already been created. So, and I like kind of this data recycling. So, and now using AI, because of course you could try to do this manually. Like if you really know your archive well, you might know where to find that dog with a ball in 500,000 images, but the machine can find this in a fraction of a second. Okay, next. Instead of just matching images to each other, of course, this can be extrapolated to moving images. So I built this other tool, which I love, the Internet Archive, where there's so much beautiful data, which it's kind of a landfill for data, and a lot of it is public domain, and they have this huge archive of movies, which are educational, are advertising, and anything, and so at some point, I started harvesting all this and classifying the material with different neural networks. And then I built this tool which allows me to find matching scenes. So in a way similar to pictures, it now takes an entire scene, which also AI kind of detects where the scene starts and ends. And then I can start giving it kind of a guidance clip and ask it to replace every scene that you see here with something from the archive. I don't know, is it possible to turn down this light a little bit, because then you can see the movie better. So up in the corner you will see the source, and on the main screen you will see what the machine did. And this will have sound now. And I hope it's coming. There we go.
Did you ever make anything happen? Anything you couldn't explain? You're a wizard, Harry.
I'm a what? Dear Mr. Potter, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry.
In a few moments, you will pass through these doors and join your classmates.
Keep an eye on the staircases. They like to change.
Good afternoon, class. Welcome to your first flying lesson. Stick your right hand over the broom and say up. Wow.
note that the dark forest is strictly forbidden, that no magic is to be used between the classes in the corridors.
Trificus Totalis.
The third floor corridor is out of bounds to everyone who does not wish to suffer a most painful death.
Understand this, Harry, because it's very important. Not all wizards are good.
I'm going to bed before either of you come up with another clever idea to get us killed. Or worse, expelled.
She needs to sort out her priorities.
I think it is clear that we can expect great things from you.
Well, oh, thanks. Okay, so calcium carbonate. Now, what I like about it is that, I mean, I did not do any edit myself. So it's really everything is selected by the machine. And maybe you noticed that sometimes it seemed like it was lip syncing. And I find that highly fascinating. I mean, it's not like there's no thing that looks at the lips. It's really just kind of the way the feature vectors seem to match up at certain scenes. It fascinates me myself. It doesn't always work, and of course sometimes you just don't have the right match. But yeah, it's one of those things where I still like kind of like seeing what it gives me. I don't know, kind of, it's not useful, but it gives me the feeling that the machine has kind of like not exactly the same understanding of what I'm seeing there, but well, there is a kind of some common ground, but at the same time, also it shows me things that I might not have seen, which is kind of the goal, right? Otherwise, I could do it myself. So, what have we next? Oh yes, Synaesthesia. So, this was kind of just kind of doing these matching motion or semantics to semantics within one medium, but of course. The other thing that we love doing is matching two different things which come from, like, I don't know, words and images or sound and visuals. So here's an example where I have an AI that analyzes a song, and then it tries, I again give it this kind of clips from the Internet Archive. In this case, it's a single clip, so it's kind of whatever, some kind of a scientific experiment. I should send ahead that all the glitches that you see are already in the material. They are not added afterwards. Because of course, like, that's what you can do. Like, sometimes I love to make things complicated because of course you could just take a video and add effects on it and it will probably look better. But I like the idea, like, how well can a machine kind of make cuts, pick scenes, and that fit somehow to the music. So let's have a look. Yeah, so again, I'm so lazy that I never do any edits to anything the machine gives me. So I rather have it run a new version, but I never say, oh, maybe I should do a little tweak there. So Anyway, okay, so next medium, text. So there is a quote which is called, "There are beautiful truths which are absolutely meaningless," which, I don't know, could be said by somebody, but as you probably can guess, it is, again, made by a machine. Because, I mean, so text is almost like the, well, I don't know, like the most interesting medium to experiment in, because you just give words and then you send them out as seeds, and like everybody can then decide themselves if they find meaning it or not. So I built this installation called Appropriate Response, which consists of this kneeler and an airport display, and behind it is it was actually GPT-2 text model, which I had trained on the 10,000s, 50,000s of famous quotes, epigrams, and then when you kneel down, the machine creates your personal quote, and that's interesting to watch, kind of like a fortune cookie or some horoscope. That's the very interesting thing. Like, it might just hit, like, it's almost like that seed which falls onto fertile ground or not, but because it's kind of in this ceremony, in this ritual given to you, like, people tend to give a lot of meaning to these words, which just have been kind of created by a machine. But of course, because it was harvested from that space of epigrams, and that's kind of what I want to say, kind of this famous quotes are almost like a distillation or like of kind of things that are important to us as humans, which have been kind of like made it through the test of time about this fundamental truth about life and love and everything that's important to us. So that's why I find exploring this epigram quote space so good, because of course the hope is that the machine finds maybe another truth in there which might be meaningful to us. But of course the problem is the meaning is still something we have to bring. The machine can only say that this sentence is grammatically correct and within a certain cluster, but it cannot really tell if it's really good or means something to somebody. And hello? Well, okay, yeah, this is how it looks. But we have to move on. Okay, but now we get to the new times. So, because about 1.5 years ago, the age of clip started. So, and that's kind of the world we are in now. So, clip was coming in the shadow of DALL-E, like DALL-E 1. So now I guess you all know what DALL-E is. You've all seen this. It's this image which you give it a prompt, and then this model which you give a prompt, and then you get an image out. But so everybody was looking at the pretty avocado chair, but the real kind of revolution was clip. And clip is another model which does not do any visuals. It is kind of a very elaborate measuring tape. It allows you to measure the distance between a text and an image. And that doesn't sound like much, but it's super powerful because it, again, like you saw before, that it's not only like we are back out of that time where it's about like there's a dog and a tree and a mobile phone in the image. This model understands deeper concepts about us, about what an image means beyond what you see. So really it understands this is an image where a lonely person is on, or this is a very happy or a very frightening image. So, and clip can measure that. So you can give it any text and an image, and it will give you a number how far they are apart. And then you can give it another text and the same image, and it will give you another number. And if that number is bigger, actually in this case it means better. Usually bigger means worse. But anyway, so what you can do is now you can either change the image or the text to make that distance smaller and smaller. And by applying algorithms to it, you can make it either create interesting images to a prompt you give it, or you can have it write interesting descriptions to an image you give. It can also measure text to text and image to image. So it's like a universal pocket knife. And this model is running now pretty much in all those notebooks and GAN things that you see here. So pretty much I think if you see any AI-made image here, the magic is done by clip. So this is kind of what allowed us to steer it to certain spaces. So once you can measure, you can steer, you can optimize. So this is, for example, like where I wrote some code which takes any kind of image, I don't know, some random image, and then I hooked it actually into the quote generator from the appropriate response and tried to optimize whatever it says so it fits the image. So in this case, it's not like a literal description of there is a fountain and some cars, but more something that is more interesting. So architecture is the art of getting people to feel alone. So of course I picked that in the end. It made other variations. What else? White noise is the new black noise. Sometimes the best way to be angry is to be young. So yeah, and so of course this was also generated, but yeah, by being able to drive the text and like picking which text generation model you choose, you can have it make things that maybe at least make you laugh, or sometimes, well, yeah, I think make you laugh is good. Where's the magic? Okay, so yeah, I was already talking about the magic of the prompting, because that is kind of the new kind of magic we have. So this power that you can take words, and the words will give you something, allow you something to create, well, to create something from nothing. So you can give it any sentence, I don't know, a tree in trending on ArtStation, and it will give you a tree that looks like a pretty picture. But yeah, so, and it's really very fascinating because it is like magic. So just as in magic, where like at least the magic that we imagine, you have to get the words into the right order and say them in the right way, so in order that you get the effect that you want. And so the craft lies in finding the right words to steer the model into those areas where you, well, where you are happy, where you find something, where you want to look for more. So, I mean, I'm not sure, we're still looking for the right term to call this whole prompt magic. So this was just actually a proposal that GPT-3 made, how to call it. I'm not sure if it's that one. Come on. Oh yeah, so, and well, together with this comes this whole new world, which is also a new world for me, where until, let's say, yeah, a year ago, I, like, doing stuff with AI was still craft. You had to train your own models, or at least install your own code base, make your own tweaks, and kind of, well, do most of the groundwork, so in the end you could start getting pictures. But now we have this new world, because these models, especially the ones that make the good-looking pictures, unfortunately require so much computation and training and doing it that the normal person cannot afford anymore to train them, or we don't even have the machines. Well, there are some open source, actually some approaches where there's an attempt to put this into the hand of the people, but the big ones that you have heard of is probably DALL-E. Actually, there's now DALL-E 2 by OpenAI, and Imagen by Google, which nobody has access to. Midjourney is actually the model that you can get access to. So these are all these new models that you do not run on your machine anymore, but you just access a server, and then you prompt there, and they get images back. This is wonderful because it makes this thing accessible to everybody. But it also comes with some pitfalls. And oh yeah, and Simulacra bot is a new bot, which is actually kind of based on an effort driven by no, I'm sometimes bad with names. So it's an open, like almost like it's an attempt at making a public model, which is not in the hands of one of the big companies. Oh. Hello. This is, maybe I have to stand up. Oh, come on. Okay, so, but let's quickly get back to the magic. So I was talking about like getting the words right. So we have here a girl with a pearl earring, and I just gave the joke away. Aww. Yeah, okay, so you just quickly saw it. So that's the problem with words. They have, like, if you just get the word wrong by one letter, like the model takes you literal. So if you say, like, instead of pearl, you forget the L, it gives you a girl with a pear earring. So, and of course that's fun because, I mean, often accidents give you exactly that which you did not expect, but which might be better than what you were hoping for. So that's the beauty. So these models can give you like really happy accidents. Like noise cannot give you such good accidents. Like than just like having like one letter wrong. Okay, so here's another Mid-Journey example for the conjuring hands. God, I'm actually running totally over time. So, well, it's the clicking. What is this? Okay, so this was, using these models, of course, makes it very easy to take kind of like an idea you have in your head and putting it out there. So there was this thought, like I always liked the idea of these old still lifes, which are nautical, where you have like a wreck in the sea. And I mean, I'm totally not able to paint, but I had that idea in my head. And so I wanted to make something that is called plastic trash in a storm at sea. And yeah, and using Mid-Journey in this case allowed me to kind of explore this concept and then home in on the style and message that I wanted. And then of course a motive like that I had to mint as an NFT, but I thought this is something, like, it's kind of like, it's a cause. So actually what I did, and that's the benefit of Tezos, so some advertising here, I minted this on Versum and kind of could change the whole, like the wallet address that receives all the royalties, like all the money, and including the royalties, to and a foundation which is kind of preserving the ocean. So in this case, I could just very quickly, I mean, I think this whole project took like 3 hours to set up. I mean, the longest was the email trying to get the people to set up a Tezos wallet so they could receive the donations. And in the end, I think there's still some for sale, but it made a few $1,000s for that foundation because I sold them too cheap, of course. But so, okay, so God. Should I stop or, I don't know, I could go on for a bit. So now I have to. So the problem is now we have these powerful machines that like will fulfill every wish you have, plus 3 more. So the thing is that now that we can take our ideas very quickly and transform them into something visual, there might be the problem that we run out of things that we want to wish for. So like you see that already kind of like with the prompts going around, like there are certain popular prompts which people are using. So the problem is really like at some point you just don't know what to ask for anymore. You had seen all those, well, I don't know, landscapes with something. So yeah, so they're like these things, yeah, I don't know if this is even my art. So I don't know, that's the problem now. So I have all these options and I see this, I like the aesthetic, but I'm really not sure, is this me? Is this my art, or is this just something somebody else could have done and I would have liked it? So you get these new problems with these models. Well, sometimes it's reacting really well and then it's not. Okay. Yeah, this is something new. Okay, so you have to come up. Okay, what can I do with these things now? So I've started kind of my diary now. So instead of like when I'm traveling, kind of doing like a sketch, I now use DALL-E to describe the situation I'm currently in, and then try to model the model to capture it. So I mean, almost looks like me. I don't know. I mean, that's the nice thing. So I don't know. Probably I look so no, but. And you can do that with yourself. So it's very easy to get the model to do something where at some point it says, oh, it's good enough. It could be me. And so this is kind of one of those things I like doing, saying like total normal stuff. Instead of going like trying to find the next weird, surreal thing, I'm almost like now in the process where I say, oh, make me something really normal and doesn't have to be special, but in the end it's kind of like, oh yeah, this was me traveling. That's not me, but like the experience of traveling, economy, in the middle seat. Oh yeah, new other problems. Oh yeah, and that's kind of, I'm always the wrong person to ask, because like usually people say, yeah, do you share your prompts? Because see, the prompt is this magic incantation, and you might have struck a prompt which gets you to this lonely little beach somewhere in latent space where you are totally alone, and it's just a paradise. Once you share that prompt, then of course very quickly everybody will arrive there. And so I am somebody who doesn't share their prompts. At the same time, I can see the issue that of course we are exploring this together, and there are certain good prompts that are supposed to be shared, because it's a big space. Let's say, I mean, I don't like the trending on ArtStation. Okay, so trending on ArtStation, maybe for those who don't know, is one of those magic things. You just append to a prompt and it makes everything looks like 10 times better, and there are a few others. So, I mean, 10 times better in certain, if you measure it on certain aesthetics. I find them sometimes too nice, but and somebody at some point came across that and then shared it. Oh, how long? Okay, so I have to stop.
Sorry, Mario. Yeah, we're going to have to cut you short. I know. And questions, please find Mario elsewhere for questions as well.
Well,
we've got to move on to the next panel, I'm afraid.
Sorry, no.
I know, that sucks, but sorry, we have to move on.
So comfy on that chair, so I got a bit in the talking. All right, thank you so much.